I'm very excited to join you guys right now. I heard from Jeffrey share that it's afternoon there. It's actually 6 a.m. here. And I'm actually in transit in my transport at the moment. So like, sorry, bear with me with the noises in the background. I'm camping myself in a train station right now. So yeah. Today I would love to share with you guys about art and the environment. So as Jeffrey has, very kindly shared about a little bit about my profile, is that he shared my profile in the environmental space. But today I would also like to share like some of the works that I've done in the art space as well, along with my environmental work. So yeah, hi, I'm Cheryl, and I believe that doing good is contagious. I wear different hats for different organizations, and I'll share a little bit more about that in my different slides later. But let me just give a quick sharing about today's agenda. So I'll share about like what I'm up to, and also what does art mean to me and my work, and now what. So after sharing this, what can we do as a group. And also like just a quick heads up, like today's sharing is really purely based on my past experience and opinions. So I'm actually like I do prefer like conversations with people, so I am looking forward for the Q&A later. So if you guys have any questions, so feel free to like take note on them, or like just send it to me over the chat here. And yeah, so I'm Cheryl, and I wear different hats for different organizations. So some of it includes managing the Singapore Youth for Climate Action, up to degrees, and also the Singapore Eco Film Festival. So mainly a large portion of what I do in my work, at least in Singapore, is I work with the community. I work in like a 3P kind of format: the public, private, and people sector. So like I work with the communities on like ground up campaigns and also movements, and also like sort of like a day-to-day sort of like sustainability kind of a projects, sorry. And it's rather mainly focused on like what people can do within their ecosystem, like individual ecosystem on climate action. That's one. And then with businesses I collaborate, or like I do consult them on like how they can see themselves as like how they can transform what their company is doing existingly into a more sustainable means, which is like sort of reducing our impact, not only just with the environment, but with with our society as well. So we look into social issues across there as well. And also we do work with government in analyzing some of the policies that are made to actually aid our whole sustainability movement as a nation. So as Jeffrey have kindly shared earlier on, that I'm actually here in London, sorry, I'm actually here in the UK because of the climate conference. And I mean, this year the climate conference had a lot of coverage from a lot of media, so I'm very sure like most of you have heard about the conference that happened actually 3 weeks ago. I'm just staying back here to complete some work with some of the local communities here. So what was this conference about? It's actually the United Nations, it's called the UNFCCC COP. So UNFCCC stands for the United Nations Framework for Climate Change Convention. And then COP, it stands for Conference of the Parties. So this year is COP 26. Supposedly it was COP 27, but because of COVID, we delayed a year. So what is COP is that it's sort of like this meeting where, it started in, wow, I'm as old as COP actually. So like COP, actually no, I'm younger than COP. So COP started way back in minus a few 1992 at the Rio meeting, and in the Rio Earth Summit meeting, where everybody came together and agreed that climate change was going to be one of the biggest issue in our generation. And they started then to look for ways to come together as like the whole world to take actions on climate change. And over the years, there has been a lot of agreements that have been settled at the COP meetings. So one of the most iconic one was the actually there's three very iconic agreements. So one is the Kyoto Protocol, the Doha Amendment, and also the most recent one was the Paris Agreement. So Paris Agreement was sort of put together in 2015, almost in 1995. I don't know why, but like it was put together in 2015. And this year in Glasgow, they managed to finally wrap up a lot of the agreements since then. So I mean, a lot of people always ask me, like, why does it take like forever to get the agreement going? And then actually, like, to be honest, like everybody know that climate change is real, is happening. At least from the perspective of the people that is attending here, everybody can agree that there is changes to the environment that can affect our survivability as a whole entire world. But people are not very, I think the one thing that I feel that people cannot agree upon is like how climate change is being impacted on and impacted upon. So what contributes towards climate change, and what can we do to mitigate or adapt towards climate change? These are like things that people cannot agree on, and therefore like the conversation is always going. And which brings to the next question is like a very heavily debated question is like, how does impact look like in this space? And unfortunately, like a common conversation that I have been having with people is that we realize that it's sometimes very judgmental, at least in our perspective, is that we tend to judge our impact very heavily. So like when I say that, what I mean is like in my opinion, like all impact matters, no matter how big or how small. But then like to some people, maybe certain impacts don't matter as much as other impact, and then which is very common. But yeah, it's a common conversation here. So so that was a little bit about COP. And another thing that I noticed that how mainstream media has been portraying COP is like the event of the century and stuff, right? But actually it's not. COP is like, to me it's like a process. It's the place where everybody come together and sort of like finalize some of the details in agreements. But at the end of the day, we need to continue moving, because like climate change is such a huge intertwined issue. Sorry, Jeffrey.
5 more minutes.
Okay. Yes. Thank you. So climate change is such an intertwined issue. It's like, imagine a ball of yarn that is like so tangled up together. That is the most literal depiction of climate change issues that I can share with you guys. So like therefore it requires like people from different areas to take action to mitigate this. And then we need we need players from everywhere. So back to the big topic, right, which is like how can arts and environment come hand in hand. So I think like when I was doing this, like I actually took a step back and asked myself, what does art mean as a word? According to Google, because Google is always right? Just kidding. But like according to Google, at least, art is actually various branches of creative activity, such as painting, music, literature, and dance. And then and one form of art that I tend to see very often in the climate space at COP is actually like different campaigns and demonstrations. But I think like what I want to share is that art doesn't have to look a certain way, and this may be one form of art that is choose to use as its choose to being like portrayed in this whole movement, but it can be more than that. And sometimes, you know, it can be in the form of like exhibition. So this is one of the exhibition that I saw here that was very powerful. It's called the I and the We. It's actually artworks made by inmates in prison, in the judicial system here in the UK, to express their thoughts. So actually I was expecting like much more like, you know, grievances towards like their punishment or anything, but actually no, it actually shares so much more, and it gave so much perspective towards like how people are you know, navigating COVID through their time there, or like how do they see the world in their time there. But I think what I really wanted to share was that, you know, oftentimes we always see art as a medium, but actually like I feel that art is kind of like a character on its own. And sometimes I feel like instead of letting like what you want to convey across take over your art, why don't we use our art to take over how we see and, you know, explore you know, different issues in a way. So as mentioned, right, like, you know, art can take in different forms, right? I was wondering, like, can you guess like what do I do like as an art form in a sense? Like any guesses, random guesses here? Do I paint? Do I... Anyone? Jeffrey, you want to take a guess?
Film. Are you doing film?
Yes, that is one of them. So I filmed. But I was I was a okay, I like to say in my previous life, but like in my previous life I was a producer, and I produce and film social documentaries. But I'm also a musician. This is one less known fact. And interestingly enough, what I did in an orchestra, what I feel and what I was like trained to feel and trained to do as a flautist. I don't know what we call ourselves, but the person who plays the flute. What we do, like learn there, right, actually shaped a lot of the skills that I use today in the sustainability scene. How I listen, how I pay attention. So one of the most important thing I learned as a musician, right, like conductor always say, your body language speaks 90% of what you want to do, and it dictates 90% of how your music is being perceived as to others. And yeah, this is one of the things that I observe very frequently, especially in negotiations, like the body language of others. So some countries, you know, like take one very funny example is like country A says like he wants to you know, take B for the climate and say yes to everything, but then like his body language is being very like stifled and everything, and I find that very interesting, and it helps a lot of times in my work. I know I'm running out of time, Jeffrey. I can see you pacing in the room. So I just jump first towards some of the tips. You know, sometimes we can get carried away doing our art, so always remember to check your laws. Be creative in them. I always say, like, you know, there is no. It's just like, how can we be creative in them? And always connect. And, you know, we're never alone, and that's our strength. I guess at the end of the day, you know, my question, like, to everyone here is, how will your art, shape your experience and help you see the world? And how will you, shape it with others? That is something that I hope, like, I bring across to you guys. And thank you guys so much. Feel free to connect with me after this workshop. Yeah, I think I'm ready for Q&A.
Thank you, Cheryl.